move.
Well, good morning and welcome to Unity of Kent Sunday service for May 28th, 2023. On this Memorial Day weekend. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to all of you on Zoom. And we have a wonderful service for you this morning with our musician, Stephen Plummer. And Stephen will now open the service with song.
Good morning, everybody. I haven't been here for a while. I have a new CD. It just came out. It's called Overcoming. And this is one of the tracks from that CD. And this is an older CD, or older song, many, many years ago. Life is like a mountain railroad with an engineer that's brave. We must make the run successful from the cradle to the grave. Watch the curves, the hills and tunnels. Never falter, never fail. Keep your hand upon the throttle and your eye upon the rail. Holy Spirit, thou will guide us till we reach that blissful shore with the angels all around us in that great forevermore. In that great forevermore.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Well, good morning again, and welcome to this morning's service. My name is Reverend Patty Becker, and I am delighted to be the spiritual leader of Unity of Kent. I have been for, I think, the last 8 years, going on 9. Time is just, it just flows like a river. Unity of Kent is a welcoming congregation. We invite people of all races, creeds, colors, lifestyles to join us if you are serious about growing spiritually and want to explore all that you can be in every way, in your physical life as well as your spiritual life. We are here to support you. We support you with a philosophy that is positive, that looks to the good, that acknowledges that each one of us is an embodiment of spirit, and that our greatest gift is to use that spirit to experience a life enhanced with joy and well-being. Unity's teachings are based on the teachings of Jesus as well as New Thought principles. And we emphasize, at least I do here, and emphasize and encourage everyone here to rely on your own spiritual intelligence and your own spiritual authority, that you know for yourself what fits well with you, what serves you, what helps you to grow. And what helps you to grow may not necessarily be the path that someone else is on. So never think that you're on the wrong path just because you're not on the same path as someone else, that each one of us lives a unique life. Our worship assistant this morning is Lee O'Neill, and you've already heard from Stephen, and she invited us into our worship service this morning with song, and so I'd like to do that now with prayer. And so we center ourselves in this moment, this graced moment. And what makes this moment graced? I think it's our open hearts to receive the inflow of Spirit into our lives. There's one presence and one power active in the universe, and this same presence and power is the very fabric and waft and weave of my own life, of your life. And so we acknowledge that this spirit, this reality is active, and it enthusiastically calls us to more and more wakefulness in our lives. And we celebrate our wakefulness by leaning into it in a powerful way, by expanding more, becoming more aware, and more grounded in the truth that we know for ourselves. And so it is. Amen.
Spirit song. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who's that yonder dressed in blue? Wade in the water. Must be the children that are coming on through. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. If you don't believe I've been redeemed, just wade in the water. Just see the Holy Ghost looking for me, and God's gonna trouble the water. I said, God's gonna trouble the water. Sing it with me now. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. I said, God's gonna trouble the water. I said, God's gonna trouble the water.
Thank you, the one and only Stephen Plummer. Always nice to have you here with us. So good morning, and thank you all for joining us on this Memorial Weekend. We love and are grateful for your support, so thank you for being here. Let's start with our statement of faith. There's one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotence. I trust and align with that power of goodness now. So it is Memorial Weekend, and we remember all the people that have fought for our freedom. But not only in the U.S. are people fighting for freedom, but all over the world. And I found this quote from Ralph Waldo that I thought was appropriate for today. Patriotism is a beautiful thing. It is well for me to love my country. But why should I love my own country more than I love all others? If I love my own and hate others, I then show my limitlessness, and my patriotism will not stand the test even for my own country. If I love my own country and in the same way love all other countries, then I'd show the largeness of my nature. A patriotism of this kind is noble and always to be relied upon. So the announcements today, the Spirit Talk resumes on Wednesday with Patty at 10 a.m. And you can go to our website and hit events and find the Spirit Talk for Wednesdays. Also, next week, it's very important, we're having a updated Keep Connected meeting. We had one about a month ago and went over our financial status, and we'd like to bring you up to date what has transpired since then. So it will be on Zoom. It will be right here after service. We'll go downstairs after the meeting for coffee. So today the virtue is goodness. Goodness is the best or most valuable part of everything. It is the state or quality of being good. It can refer to moral excellence, virtue, kindness, generosity, or an act that has a positive, uplifting effect on others. And if you'll say the affirmations with me, I am an expression of goodness. I promote goodness by being kind and thoughtful. I practice goodness in all my undertakings. I am positive and uplifting. And the daily word today is comfort. Loving memories comfort me. There may be days or maybe even weeks on the calendar when I find myself mysteriously feeling melancholy or blue, only to realize the anniversary of someone or something I have lost is approaching. Even when I don't realize it outright, a part of me remembers and responds. I can honor these feelings as a way to honor the people and places that have taught me and helped me evolve. Welcoming my feelings brings deep and abiding comfort. I carry those people and places I love within the things I do, keeping their spirit alive. Revisiting treasured memories reveals the love within the loss. The presence of God is found within the gift of each moment, and I find comfort through my grateful heart. Let your steadfast love become my comfort, according to your promise to your servant. Psalm 119:76. So now, if you have a prayer that you would like to bring up to the box, or if you're on Zoom and you would like to unmute and share your prayer with us, now would be the time.
I'm Debbie, and I wanted you to pray for my friend Ev. He is healing from spine surgery, and he's had a few setbacks. So just pray for healing for his back and his legs. He's been having troubles with his legs. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Well, there are prayers spoken, prayers written, and prayers we hold in our hearts. And so all of those we acknowledge right now as we rub our hands together to get the energy up and direct them towards the prayers in the prayer box. And we also extend our goodwill to include all of those prayers unspoken and yet are close to our hearts. There's one presence and one power active in the universe, in my life, and in the lives of my loved ones. This presence and power is not challenged nor superseded. It stands alone as the one reality of our lives. It is a power that extends itself in all directions at the same time, and it includes every circumstance, every situation, every desire, and every need. We turn ourselves over. We give over our prayers of concern, our desires of want to this presence and power, knowing it to be responsive. And since it is responsive, it is our good pleasure to accept with faith the fulfillment of all that it is we desire. And so with gratitude, we let go and we let God be God in our lives. We let go of how we would like to see our lives unfold, and let it be in the presence and the power and the timing and the wisdom of Spirit. And because of this, we can be confident that whatever comes forth from goodness is goodness. And so it is. Amen.
So now's the time for handshakes and hugs. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
There is only one of us. In your eyes, it's me I see. There is only one of us. You are my reflection. There is only one. There is only one of us. In your eyes, it's me I see. There is only one of us. You are my reflection. There is only one. There is only one of us. In your eyes, it's me I see. There is only one of us. You are my reflection. There is only one. You are my reflection. There is only one. There is only one. This is a song I wrote a number of years ago about my loved ones who had passed on. A broken heart is open. I'm gonna let it flow. Blessed water healing in my soul. Life can seem fragile. Yes, it's true. But I'll let the water take me wherever it may go, 'cause I know God is the ocean, God is the river, God is the sea. God is the streams and God is the life that flows within me. God is the questions, God is the answers, God is the song. God is the power, God is the wisdom that moves us along, yeah. We're here and then we move on into the great beyond. Shooting stars and shining suns, God's light in everyone. Growing and flowing, oh, expanding everywhere. Life is so beautiful, and love my prayer, and I know God is the ocean, God is the river, God is the sea, God is the streams, and God is the life that flows within me. God is the questions, God is the answers, God is the song. God is the power, God is the wisdom, moves us along. I know, I know, I know. God is the ocean, God is the river, God is the sea. I know, I know, I know. God is the streams, and God is the life that flows within me. God is the questions, God is the answers, God is the song. God is the power, God is the wisdom that moves us along. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Stefan. Well, happy weekend. Memorial Day, Memorial Weekend, the beginning of summer. Memorial Day is, growing up for me, was the 3-day weekend that my family and I went out of town, and usually it was camping that we did, and but not always. What was pretty consistent, though, is going to my grandmother's home, and which is in Roslyn, Washington, a small town in eastern Washington, and that's where many of my family. My mother is from Cle Elum, which is just 3 miles away, and then Roslyn is where my father is from, and so right in that area, all of our relatives are buried, and so the highlight of Memorial Day was to go back home, the parental home, and to decorate the graves, to clean up the graves, to talk about past times, to have a picnic usually. It was usually a gathering at my grandmother's house where aunts and uncles and cousins would come. And we'd catch up with one another, and it was a great family time, and that's my experience of Memorial Weekend, Memorial Day. That hasn't always been the case, though. Memorial Day came out of the Civil War period, and I was thinking about that this morning, and it made me curious about President Lincoln's most famous address, the Gettysburg Address, and so I looked it up. And I know I've read it before, but at different times, it's been a while, and so sometimes when time has passed, it seems a little fresher. I'd like to read it this morning. So this was delivered by President Lincoln at Gettysburg after a battle, and there were many who died, many more wounded. On November 19th, 1863, there was a gathering of people, and the president was asked to make an address. From my impression of that is it was kind of off the cuff. It wasn't very long, it was fairly short, and not penned out by a speechwriter, and yet it has been one of the most enduring American documents that we have in terms of our presidents. And so he begins very familiarly, 80. 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can be never forgot that what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion, so that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And that's what the Civil War was about, to maintain those values of equality and unity. There have been many wars through the ages and over every portion of the earth that have been fought for noble causes, as well as wars fought for greed and advancement of egos, of nations, of people, of individuals. The Civil War was a great effort to maintain the unity of the United States as it was at that time, and to make a statement of equality for all people, no matter who they were, no matter what age, what political persuasion, what skin color, what philosophy, what religion, that regardless of the trappings, that all men are created equal, that all persons are created equal. In honor of those that gave their lives for that purpose, there was a Union general by the name of General Logan who put forth the idea of having a day to remember those who have died. And that was pretty much the first effort in many steps, the first step in many steps for establishing an enduring Memorial Day. In the early days, it may happen here, in this time, but there's a tradition that from, I believe at 6 a.m. until noon, the flag would be flown at half-mast, and then from noon to dusk, the flag would be at half-mast for those who died at the Civil War, and then it would be raised to full mast for all of those who died in subsequent wars. Although it started for the Civil War, after the Civil War, couple decades. We had World War I, and then after that, there was World War II, and then after that, there were other wars. There was the Korean War, the Vietnam War, there's wars overseas. And so Memorial Day became expanded to include the memory of all those men and women in military service who died in service to the United States. And that's what I remember. And if you go to any, I can't say that's a blanket statement, but I know in even the little town of Roslyn, this morning probably, or at least tomorrow morning, there's going to be some sort of military honors, probably, because I've been there in the past, probably a 21-gun salute and speeches and in the military section of the cemetery. And I think that happens throughout, all across the country. Beyond those who have died in service, Memorial Day has included all of those who we have lost in our lives, not only soldiers, not only military people, men and women, but also our own loved ones. It gives us an opportunity to reflect and remember, to come into relationship with all of the losses of other people in our lives. And so that's what it was for me in my growing up. It was going to my family's burial plots. And there is great wisdom, I think, in establishing a national day of reflection and mourning. It's a public acknowledgement of grief and loss in our culture who does not give much attention to grief and loss, that kind of sweeps it under the rug, that is a culture that is youth-oriented and going forward-oriented and life-oriented, and does not have rituals that deal with grief and loss on a personal level or even on a community level. I know that now in these times when mass shooting seems to be happening regularly, that communities come together to share their loss. And that's a right and perfect thing to do. I was very moved this morning by the Daily Word, so much so that I'd like to just refer to it now again and reread it. And again, the word for today is comfort. Loving memories comfort me. There may be days, or maybe even weeks on the calendar, when I find myself mysteriously feeling melancholy or blue, only to realize the anniversary of someone or something I have loved and lost is approaching. Even when I don't realize it outright, a part of me remembers and responds. I can honor these feelings as a way to honor the people and places that have taught me and helped me evolve. Welcoming my feelings brings deep and abiding comfort. I carry those people and places I love with me in the things I do, keeping their spirit alive. Gradually, I find smiles within the sadness. Revisiting treasured memories reveals the love within the loss. The presence of God is found within the gift of each moment, and I find comfort through my grateful heart. This is such an important reading for today because it acknowledges the tremendous impact that our emotions have, even when we're not aware of it. If our mind is not consciously aware of a memory of a loved one that is lost, our bodies remember, our psyches remember. And it's so true. I've experienced this in my life, that I'll starting to get irritated at a particular, when there's an event coming up or I don't know, maybe the month that my mother died or father or something. And I'm not making that connection. I just know that, oh, I'm a little bit more sensitive, or I'm a little bit more irritable, or I'm a little less patient. And then it'll hit me, oh yeah, this happened at this time last year. And then I can reconnect. And once I reconnect, I can feel with it. I can say, oh yeah, that's it. I can feel with it. And as I feel with it, it tends to flow through and dissipate. And it leaves me more aware and healthier, and helps me to move in a different kind of space in which I'm feeling more myself, more strength, more power, and more well-being. And that is the gift of being with grief and loss in our lives. So in a work situation, if there's a significant loss, and your boss gives you 3 days, maybe, and then back at work and expecting full capacity, that is totally unreasonable, because we don't operate that way. And the longer that we try to operate ignoring our loss, the less efficient and the less grounded and the less, the word efficient came to my mind again, but it's the less we are able to do what is ours to do. Because what is truly ours to do at a soul level is to be with ourselves at every time there is an emotional impact in our lives. This is so evident in one of the readings that I very often use for memorial services, because it embraces all of those emotional situations and experiences of our lives. And it's very familiar. I have a lot of readings today, so it was very familiar. And so just lean into this, okay? And it's Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. This piece of writing gives permission, gives acknowledgement, gives voice to our full range of our emotional selves. And what it says is that it's okay, that there's a time and a purpose and there's a reason for all of our emotions, and to try to repress any of them results in imbalance, results in pain, and results in residual anger. One of the things that I took from every week we have a little blurb advertising the service, and this week my talk title is For Goodness Sake. And Diana Keyes, who writes this, said, "Did you know that the phrase for goodness sake was originally used literally, meaning for the sake of everything good or pure or decent or honest? It has since become an idiom used as an exclamation, expressing feelings like frustration or impatience, usually accompanied by an exclamation mark. For goodness sakes." You know, have you ever done that? Have you ever heard it? Have you ever crossed your arms and looking at a situation and go, for goodness sakes? But I'd like to go back to the original meaning of it, that it literally means for the sake of everything good and pure and decent and honest. And I think that this reading from Ecclesiastes reveals what is good and true and real and honest in ourselves. And that it is to our best health and highest interest to embrace the full range of who we are, not only to embrace it, but to fight for it, to insist upon it, and to feel good about it. That would be for goodness sakes. Our emotions are especially susceptible to judgment. Not so much those that we would label positive, but the ones that we would label negative. They're the ones, the bugaboos of our lives that we have a sense that should be eliminated from our experience, from our emotional experience. That somehow they're not worthy of our beingness. And these emotions that are particularly susceptible to repression are what? Anger. Don't be angry. Have you ever heard that in your life? Have you ever said that to somebody? Don't be angry. Those other emotions that tend to be repressed in our full range of experience is grief, that I've been talking about today, grief and loss. Oh, get over it. Oh, you can always get another car. Oh, you can always have another child. You can always make a fresh start. You can get another job. That doesn't help in the moment when you're feeling the loss. What helps in the moment of feeling the loss is feeling the loss. To let it flow through you and not to stop it, not to dam it up with a platitude. And that's where we fight for ourselves, to feel that. Another emotion that is generally suppressed, that we don't want to admit to, is jealousy. Oh, I'm not supposed to feel jealous. Oh, I'm not supposed to be envious. And so we squish it down and we pretend that we don't feel it. How much better off we would be to acknowledge that, yes, there are times when I do feel envious, when I do feel jealousy. To acknowledge that, and then just to let it flow, to let it go. And of course, this other, the one that with grief is loss. You know, being allowed to feel those losses in ourselves. When we advocate for ourselves at this level, we are doing it for goodness sake. We are doing it for the goodness of who we are as human spiritual beings. We acknowledge goodness as our primary foundation of being. There are many ways that we can act for the sake of goodness in our lives. One is to develop emotional intelligence. Now, this was a term that some time ago was coined and passed around in circles. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, as well as recognize and influence the emotions of those around us. When we are emotionally intelligent, we are mindful of our feelings. We are mindful of our emotional states, and we work with them. We work with them by saying, yes, I see you. And how can I support? How can I support? They are parts of us. So we can talk to our parts. We can engage with our parts. We can dialogue with our parts. And our parts are more than happy to tell us how we can be supportive. Those kinds of activities are for goodness sake, for the sake of our highest good and our truest goodness. as beings in the image of divinity. And each Sunday, we describe divinity as absolute good. Then our core foundation is absolute good. And so it is, I think, our mission as we spiritually grow is to be more and more mindful of the foundation of goodness and to talk, to act, to listen, to interact from a place of that goodness. And when we do so, we not only affect our own well-being, but we enhance the well-being of others. And so I'd like to just shift this into meditation right now. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and just to allow yourself to relax and be open. There's been a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts that come up for us during listening, during talks, I know. And so this is our time just to set all of our engagements, our mental engagements aside. And there's a native tradition that when there's something that is in the room, or you bring something into the room that you want to set aside, or into an experience that you want to set aside, to imagine a basket on the floor beside your chair. And so I would like you to imagine a basket there. And if there's any distracting thought or any tangent that you find your mind is on, to mentally place it in the basket and to reassure whatever's placed in the basket that it can come back out in a minute. But for now, and for your higher purpose, we lean into a time of being free of concern, of worry, free of clutter, free of mental activity, as we allow our bodies and spirits to go to an inner place, an inner core of peace within us. This core is our true selves. This core is the source of power, our personal power. As human beings, all of our emotional experience is sacred and holy and divine and good. How we handle our emotional experiences are up to us. And the handling determines whether they do good or whether they harm. But having them is neutral. Having them is appropriate. And so in our journeys of self-awareness, we learn how to comfort, to soothe, and to move forward. The emotions that would disturb us, to experiences of awareness and growth. Every single emotion we have is a teacher. And we say to this teacher, thank you for the wisdom you impart to me throughout every day. Thank you for the celebration of joy and happiness. Thank you for the reflection of sadness and loss. Thank you for the vehicle of grief that moves me through places where I could easily get stuck. Thank you for the health through which I experience my body, mind, and spirit. So let's just quietly sit in the silence for a few minutes in this open state, absorbing that which comes from our highest and truest mind. I give thanks for this day of remembrance, remembering those I've loved and lost, remembering those who have bravely given of themselves for noble causes, for benefits that I enjoy every day of my life. I give thanks for the depth and breadth of my own heart and the capacity I have to love and to care, to invite, to comfort, and to celebrate. There is just one presence and one power in my life, and that presence and power reveals itself in everything and everyone I encounter. And each facet blesses me. Each facet tells me how much it's on my side for goodness sake. And so it is. Amen.
If I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, and just to spend them with you. If I had a box just for wishes and dreams that had never come true, the box would be empty except for the memory of how they were answered by you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them. I looked around enough to know that you're the ones I want to go through time with.
Thank you, Stefan. During Stefan's song, I was just thinking about the values and the dedication of those fighting in the Civil War, the values of the unity of a nation for equality, for liberty. And it just struck me that as we claim our own liberty, we are also required to protect the liberty of others. And as we insist on our own freedoms, that we must ensure that other people are free to express their freedoms as well. You know, as we advocate for fairness and for justice, it's also our responsibility to protect fairness and justice for others. That we cannot claim anything for ourselves as a right or a privilege that we aren't willing to advocate for everyone having the same rights and the same privileges. And I think sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we forget that freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of religion, freedom of employment, freedom of expression is only for me. That there is a responsibility for me then to protect that for others. Otherwise, I can't honestly and authentically claim it for myself because it becomes exclusive then and discriminatory. Well, that was just the afterthought. So now is the time in our service where we share our love offerings, that we proclaim that we are prosperous, that we are abundant, living in a prospering and abundant universe. And as this congregation moves forward into its own prosperity, every week there is a prosperity affirmation along with our offertory blessing in the bulletin. And it's right under the prayer for protection, under the second page, I think, on the inside. And I'd like you to read it first to yourself, and then we'll say it together. Well, I can say it, and then we'll say it together. Doors of opportunity are now opening for Unity of Kent, and we joyfully move forward with gratitude. So if you'd say that with me. Doors of opportunity are now opening for Unity of Kent, and we joyfully move forward with gratitude. And so as we hold our gifts in our hands and step into that current of circulation, of prosperity, say with me our offertory blessing. Divine love, flowing as me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. And besides giving, thank you, Guy. Guy's going to pick up our offerings. And for those of you who are not in the sanctuary on Zoom, you can go to our webpage and give your offering on Givelify, as well as PayPal, or you can mail them in. And Unity of Kent, I don't know if you all know this, but Unity of Kent every week tithes 10%, a little more than 10%, to an organization in the community. So we are a tithing community, not only back to Unity, but to the Unity of Kent. What's our tithing organizations this month? So this month, besides Unity, Silent Unity, we are giving to the Auburn Food Bank and the Northwest Region, and one of the community's programs for kids over the summer. So I thought you might like to know that. And so once again, we rub our hands together so that we can bless our offerings. And so with full and joyful hearts, we bless these offerings, and we see them multiplied and going forth in marvelous ways, not only to bless our own community of Unity, but blessing many others in the larger community through supporting our food bank this month, as well as contributing to programming for the kids over the summer. That it is our good pleasure to step into the flow of prosperity and to celebrate not only our abundance, but our ability and our desire to support others. And so it is. Amen. Well, that's our Memorial Day Sunday service for today. Thank you for joining us on Zoom, and everyone here. There's hospitality down in the friendship room. So in the true spirit of Memorial Day picnics, it's sandwiches. So sandwiches and cookies and brownies. A gift from Leslie. And so anyway, we'll join our circle now and do our peace song, followed by our prayer of protection.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our center. Family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
The light of God surrounds us. I am the light that is God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love that is God. The power of God protects us. I am the power that is God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence that is God. Where I am, God is. And all is well. All right, and come down and have some coffee and a little bit of food and company, conversation.